What's a good way to display information? Showing information and trying to communicate something to our audience is one of the things that motion graphics is for, and we can do this in all sorts of different ways. Something we often need to communicate with motion graphics is data. And data is one of those funny ones because it's something that's really hard to understand, it can be hard to visualize, so we need to use our skills as motion designers to present the information in a way that's easy to understand as well as remember. I can tell you that only 15% of people watching right now are subscribed, but if I show you that on a bar chart, you can see just how small that number is compared to the 85% of people that aren't subscribed. Is that subtle enough? Now, a bar graph isn't going to work in every situation, and even if it does work to display the data, it might not be the most engaging way to present it. Take a look at what Vox does in their videos. Instead of using a bar graph or a pie chart to display representation, they use something called a parliament chart. This chart clearly communicates what we need to know and does it in a way that's engaging and memorable. Today, I want to show you how to build a parliament chart in DaVinci Resolve, and over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about building some of the other popular chart types inside of Fusion. Now, if you don't want to go through all of the time and effort, but still get amazing charts every time, then check out my new charts and graphs pack, which I'm going to talk more about later on in the video. But for now, there's two different types of parliament charts, one being quite easy and the other one presenting quite a few challenges. Both of them use the same foundation, so we're going to talk about building that first, and then I'm going to show you how to build the grid version as well as the art style for the parliament chart. Alright, so inside of DaVinci Resolve, we want to start by making the spot that we can enter all of the data. And for that, we're going to use a custom tool. So shift space, custom, and then we can add in the custom tool. Now, this doesn't actually generate an image, it just can modify the image, but it also allows us to just have a bunch of blank controls here that we can use to put in some data. And so I'm not going to connect this to anything, I'm just going to leave it off to the side. Now right away, I want to organize the UI just a little bit so that way we don't have so many controls. Over on the config tab, I'm going to come down to the number controls, and I'm going to turn off numbers 4, 5, 6, and 7. And if I want, I can even name these. I'm going to do red, and then I'm going to do gray, I'm going to do blue, and then the last one I'm going to set to be animation. Now you can of course enable these other ones if you want to add in more points, but what I want to do is have these 3 items on the chart and then use one of the controls to drive the animation. Once I'm done with that, I'm just going to turn off all of the point controls as well as all of the luck controls. So switching back over to the controls page, now this is really easy to understand. We have a spot to input our data, and then we have another spot to drive the animation of the chart. Then you want to figure out the scale of your data so that way you can be consistent across all of these tools. So you could do between 0 and 1, you could do between 0 and 100. I like doing between 0 and 1 just because that makes the math easiest across the board. So what we're going to do is for 45%, we're going to type in 0.45. The next one, we're going to do 15%, so 0.15. And the last one, we're going to do 40%. What you want to do is make sure that all of these controls add up to a value of 1 or 100, depending on the scale that you're working in. And right away, I'm also going to make an animation. So coming to frame 50, I'm going to add a keyframe on the animation with the value set to 1. And then all the way on frame 0, we're going to set the animation value to be 0. Under the spline tab, I'm just going to check the animation box, do Control F to fit to view, and once I select these points, I'll press F and then T to open up the ease in controls, and then just add in some ease in. And now if we just watch this in the inspector, you can see we have a pretty smooth looking animation. We'll use that a little bit more in a minute. Now there's one more thing that we need for both of these different chart styles, both the grid and the art style. And that's going to be what's controlling which section of the chart belongs to which data point, as well as what controls the animation. So I'm going to grab an ellipse node right from the node toolbar and view this off to the side. I don't want to use the width and height control at all because I want to use the position and length controls. So what I'm going to do is right click on the width, do expression, and then grab the pick whip and drop this on border width. I'll do the same thing with the height, so expression, connect this to border width. And now when I drag this up, it's going to make sure that it's always a solid circle, but it's only going to be drawing the circle from the outline. And just to ensure that this is the case, I'm going to uncheck solid, and you can see it does not change. Now, when I uncheck solid, I get these position and length controls. So if I take the length and drag this down, you can see it's going to do a write-on effect for the circle. Now, right now, this is actually pretty useless to us because of the cap style. You see it's rounding off each one of these edges. So over here, we can just use a flat cap style, and that way if I set the length to be 0.5, it's going to be using half of the circle. The other issue that we have is this is coming from the wrong spot. I want it to start on the left and then build up and go around the circle like this, and it's doing the opposite. So we could use a transform node and like flip the image, but what I like to do is just do it all inside of this node. And the way we can do that is quite simple. We just need to take the position control and find that start location. So in this case, it's going to be a position of 0.5, and then right click on the position, come down to expression, and then we're going to subtract the right length. So if I do minus, I'm just going to grab this pick whip, drag it down to the length, and it's automatically going to add in that control. So when we do this, it's going to keep the position right on this left side, and then it's going to subtract from the position as we add to the length, so that way it gives the illusion that it's starting from that left side and then going clockwise. And making this yellow, now we have the Pac-Man effect. Okay, but anyways, with the Parliament chart, it's going to be a half circle, so that means 0.5 is going to be the max value. So let's start bringing the data into this. With the custom tool, all of these controls, whatever name we put in doesn't actually matter. It's just going to use the default value. So if we hover on this, down in the bottom left, it's custom tool 1.number_in_1. So even though we renamed it to red, it's still going to be number_in_1. So if we come over to the ellipse, under the length, we're going to do right click, expression, and now we can do custom tool 1, and then we'll do .number_in_1 to reference that first point. And again, since our ceiling is going to be 0.5 instead of 1, we just need to divide this value by 2. And once we do that, you can see this ellipse is going to be taking up 45% of our Parliament chart. Now, before we move on and finish with this, what I'm going to do is put parentheses around both of these. We don't need it in this case, but we will on some of the other expressions. And then after this, I'm going to multiply by custom tool 1.number_in_8. And since the animation slider goes from 0 to 1, that means at the beginning, there's going to be nothing on the length. And at the end, it's going to show the result of our initial expression. Let's copy this node, we'll paste it off to the side and just rename this to be ellipse 2. And now we need to do a few changes to make sure that it shows the next slice in the information. The first thing I want to do is make sure that the border width in the center are the same as the first node. So I'm going to right click, expression, we'll do ellipse 1.borderWidth, and in the center control, do ellipse 1.center. Now that that's done, what we have to do is rotate this so that way this one starts where the other one ends. And instead of using the angle control, we can just use the position control. So if I come in here and then subtract the ellipse 1.right length, what that's going to do is take how large this first shape is, and it's just going to offset our current shape by that amount. So when I press enter, you can see this shape is now going to start where the last one ended. Now inside of the right length controls, we just need to change this to number_in_2. And once we've done that, this one is now taking up the 15% area of the chart. And as you can see, its animation is not only going to animate on, but it's also going to follow what the first ellipse was doing in its animation. Let's do that one more time. I'm going to copy the ellipse node, paste it, and then we're going to rename this to ellipse 3. In the position, we not only need to subtract the first shape's length, but we also need to subtract the second shape's length. So we'll do ellipse 2.right length, and then in the length control, we want to use number_in_3. So if you view this one, you can see it's going to start after that second slice, and it's going to continue until it finishes out the Parliament chart. What I'm going to do is set all of these to be a different level of opacity, and then we can just combine these together so that way we can see them all at once. So we're going to actually talk about the real way to style it in a second, but this is a good way to visualize if the chart's working or if it isn't. And while we're at this step, we're going to make this chart just quite a bit bigger. So we'll set the border width to be something like 0.6, and then we'll drag the center point down so it's towards the bottom of the screen, something like that, and we can always come back and change it. Since this isn't actually setting the style of the chart, it's only setting, which areas or which color and driving the animation, you can really have this border width go out as far as you want, and it's not going to cause any issues. But now that we have the custom tool set up so we can program the chart as well as the animation, and these three nodes actually drive that animation and drive the chart, we're ready to start building the different styles. And the first one that we're going to do is going to be the grid style. And before I get too far in that, I need to make sure to remember to set all of the levels back in these to be a value of 1, otherwise we're going to create some weird problems later on. Now this one's very simple to make. We just need to take a background node and put this after each one, and inside of this background node what we have to do is set the color of the chart. So in this case, instead of it being black, I want this to be a nice red. We're going to add in another background. For the middle section, we're going to set this to be a gray color. And then for the last slice, we're going to use a blue color. Now what we're going to do is add in a merge node. We're going to connect the first slice to the background, the second slice to the foreground, and then we'll take the output of the third one and connect this to the output of the merge node. So we combine all of those together, and now we have some color on our chart. The next thing we need to do is isolate just a slice of this area, because with the Parliament chart, it's more of a donut, like a half donut chart, rather than a pie chart, which is closer to what we have right now. Adding in an ellipse node, what we want to do is make sure that this center point matches the other one. So we're just going to use an expression, do ellipse 1.center. Then I'm going to right click on height, do expression, and link this to the width, so that way it always remains a perfect circle. And then we can uncheck solid and use a border width. So the border width is going to control the thickness of the Parliament chart, and then the width is going to control the actual size of it. Now I'm going to take the ellipse and then I'm going to plug it into each one of these different ellipse masks. And what we need to do is tell these masks to only show where they overlap. So if I come into each one of these ellipse modes and set the paint mode to be minimum, I'm going to have to do it on all of them so that way it doesn't look quite as confusing. That means if we look at these individually, ellipse 1, it's only going to show it where these two shapes overlap. So that way we get a really nice looking Parliament chart. And the finishing touch to put on this is to make a grid pattern. And this is really easy with the new Crocodile tools. So if I do shift space and type in rasterize, we can add in the rasterize node, and right away you can start to see what this is doing, but a few changes that we need to make. The first thing is the channel needs to be set to alpha, and what the channel does is determines the size of each one of these different shapes. We can then come over to the color tab and set the shape color to be image, so that way it's just going to use the color from the image that's coming into it. And this is looking really good, but there's a few problems. First, we want to be able to change how many circles are actually in the chart, and then we need to be able to change the spacing between them. So if we come over to the shape tab, come down to shape size, bringing down the size white will allow us to add some padding in between these shapes. And over on the controls tab, we can use the size to choose how many circles we have inside of this chart. And back under the shape tab, we could set this to be something like a square to have a different style of chart. But when I hit play, you can see each one of these is going to build off of each other and animate on, so that way it expands to show the entire Parliament chart. As you'll see throughout this video, building charts takes a lot of time for 3 reasons. We have building the chart, we have programming the data, and we have animating the chart. I set out to fix those 3 things in my new charts and graphs pack, and I want to show you the Parliament chart inside of that. You can access this on the edit page or the Fusion page, but if I just grab the Parliament chart and drag this down, you can see it's going to create a really nice grid style chart that has these labels at the bottom and automatically animates on and off for us. Looking at the Parliament chart, I can do something like set how many values I want. I can import all of the data from a CSV file, but the really cool stuff is in the Parliament dropdown. So right here, I can choose the shape count, and this allows me to choose an exact number. So if we're doing something like the House of Representatives, I could do 435, and now it's going to have 435 different seats on this chart. That allows me to set the display type to be exact, and that way if I type in 75, it's going to light up 75 of these squares. So I can go into the values, input the data, I could come down to the colors and give these all the same colors that we're using throughout the video. Then I could do something like set the shape to be a circle, and I can even switch it from a grid chart to be an arch chart. And something that this chart makes really easy is customizing this after the fact. I can come in here, I can change the width and height of the chart, I can change the thickness, I can change the padding. That's something that's going to be quite difficult to do in the manual method, which we're going to take a look at in just a second. But if you want to get access to this chart, as well as 7 other chart styles that have the import CSV function, they can use up to 50 different data points, and they just have a ton of customization like you've seen right here, then check out Charts and Graphs on my website. Getting that is not only going to save you a ton of time, but it's going to support me in making these free videos showing you how to build cool motion graphics in DaVinci Resolve. So check it out and let's continue on with the video. Alright, so that's really cool, but how do we expand on this and build that arch style? This one's pretty tricky and took me a little while to figure out, but we can actually use a text node to recreate this effect. So if I come into the text node, I'm just going to add in a bunch of periods, and these are going to be the circles. Now, in order to curve this around, under the layout tab, we can come down to the point and we can use a circle. And as you can see, we're already starting to get there. Now, this version of the chart is a little bit more finicky. So what we want to do is set the maximum size that we want this chart to be right away, because we can always come after the charts and add in a transform node and then use this to scale it down and make it a little bit smaller. But if it's already small, we can't scale it back up later on. And because this chart has a little bit more of a finicky setup, you don't really want to have to be making it larger later on. So I'm going to bring the center position down, put it towards the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to make this chart a little bit larger. And something that's really important is setting the anchor. So if I were to copy all of these dots and make a second line to have more items, as you can see, it's going to push the first line up higher. And when I keep doing this, it's going to offset the chart and just make a mess. So what we'd like to do is come down to the V anchor and set this to be the top, and that makes it so all of these are going to show up inside of the circle. Now, using the tracking, we can change the spacing between each one of these dots from each other, and then the line spacing will choose the gap going up and down. So right now I'm going to get the spacing and the size close to what I'd like in the final chart. And once I do that, that's when I can go through and start adding in some more of these dots until I get them to make the full 180-degree circle. Then I need to go to the second line and add as many dots as I need to make sure that this bottom point is lined up. And you can see right now going from, having this period and then another one, it's not quite enough to get it perfectly aligned. So what we want to do is get it close, which I think right here is good, And then we can change the line spacing, and then as you can see, pushing this down will allow us to line all of these points up. So on the third line, I'm going to add in another dot, and you can see I can draw a straight line across all of these points. What I like doing is copying pretty much all but the last 5, going to a new line, pasting those in. That could add in another dot or delete them, depending on if I need to add or remove points to get the spacing correct. Once I have this set, I think I want to make this just a little bit larger. So what I'm going to do is expand the circle, I'm going to expand the size. And now that I do those two, I might have to shrink the tracking a little bit. I might have to adjust the line spacing, just so that way everything is still lined up perfectly. And the nice part is we've already done most of the other hard work. So I'm gonna grab these 3 ellipse nodes, copy them, and then select the old design and just move this off to the side. If I paste these in, what I wanna do is merge 2 of these together just for a minute. So if I grab a merge node and plug the mask into the green input, make sure it's the green one, not the blue one, what I can do is make sure that I move this all the way down just to the point that these dots are fully contained inside of this slice. So I'm going to move it up until those are fully contained. If they're sticking out even a little bit, it's just going to delete that entire bottom row, which we don't want. So I'm going to bring this up until they're all inside of this first slice. Now what I want to do is isolate each one of these different sections. And the way I like to do that is by using a brightness and contrast node. And this might seem a little counterintuitive at first. But if we look at the brightness and contrast node, I'm going to enable the alpha channel, take the gain, and bring this all the way down to 0. And what that allows me to do is just delete all the information in this image. But if we take the ellipse mask as a mask onto the brightness and contrast, come to the settings tab and invert it, now we're just deleting everything outside of that slice. So this is a really efficient way to only select a certain area on our image. Now before the brightness and contrast, I'm going to add in a recolor node, and what this allows me to do is set the number of colors to be 1. We can choose white as the first color, and then the second color, we can set the color of these shapes. So I'll do a red color for that. The issue that we've made with this is we have some half circles, we have some really tiny small slices, and we do not want those. It just doesn't look good. It looks really cheap when you do it that way. So we only want to have full circles. This is where we can use another one of the new Crocodile tools, and that is going to be the fragments node. So if I add in the fragments node, what this allows me to do is use a size minimum and a size maximum. And basically, if something isn't within that range, it's just going to remove that section of the image. So if I zoom into the edge here, I'm just going to slowly bring up the size minimum by holding down Control. And as you can see, it's going to erode away those really small portions of the image. And so we want to bring this up until all of the large ones start to disappear. And so we want to get as close as possible. So in this case, it's going to be 0.0158. Now, occasionally it'll also delete just some of the solid ones in the middle. So when I've done that, I want to come in here and just slowly change some of these digits. You can see I barely had to drop it at all, but that way those ones show up again. And now when I press play and this comes on, we never have a half circle. It's only going to show us the solid circles as they appear as the animation goes on. So that's looking really great. Now we just need to do that a few more times, but it does break in here, and I'll show you why. So if we copy these 3 nodes, we're going to copy, paste them below. We'll take the text, plug it into there. We'll take the second ellipse, plug it into the brightness and contrast. It will give ourselves a little bit more room here. And then viewing the fragments, you can see it's going to show this next section. We can set the color to be a light gray, but when I merge these up, you can see it's going to create a nice little gap in between these 2 sections. The reason for that is because both of these are cutting the circle in half. So the red one has the left half of the circle, and then the gray one is going to have the other half of the circle. Neither of these are full circles, so then it's just not going to show anything. So what we need to do is cheat this a little bit and basically tell the second slice to move a little bit more to the left. So coming into ellipse 2 in the position, I'm just going to do 0.5 and then do plus 0.01. I don't need to do much, but when I press enter, as you can see, that's going to shift it far enough over so that way we can see all of these different fragments. Now, the issue with that is that it's going to have the same issue on the other side. So before we fix it, let's get the third shape going, and then we'll go back and fix that gap. Then in the ellipse 2 node, what we want to do is come to the length, and in here, we're just going to do plus 0.01. We'll do the same amount that we did in the position control. And when I do this, you can see it's going to move both the gray values and the blue values. And that's because the blue values are referencing this length control. So it's an easy fix. We just got to come to the ellipse. And inside of here, we're just going to do plus 0.02 on this one because we have to double it to counteract the effects. And that's going to make it so we have no gap up here, but now it's not going to be completing the animation at the bottom. So again, we just need to come in here to the length control plus 0.01. And when we do that, it's going to complete it. And now everything's spaced correctly. We don't have those ugly gaps. And this is just a really nice looking chart. It always takes just a little bit of trial and error, but then you have a really nice looking chart, and we can always come back to the custom tool and change these values to change the proportions of each of these different sections. But that's how you can make a Parliament chart in DaVinci Resolve. I really hope that this tutorial was helpful as we went into some more advanced motion graphics techniques. Again, if you don't want to put in the effort every single time you need to use one of these charts, then just pick up my charts and graphs pack. It has this chart, which with a ton of customization, that's just super easy to use, and it has 7 other chart styles for all of your data displaying needs. If you have any questions about this or a type of chart that you want to see me build in the future, just let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.